So, good morning everyone. You need to put your headset on. So, so this is a new experience for me, speaking to a quiet room where everybody is listening in on headset. But good morning. Thank you for joining my presentation here at AWS Summit in Stockholm. My name is Thomas Engelberg, and I work for the Japanese cybersecurity company Trend Micro. And today we're going to be talking about something that's simple, powerful, and yet often overlooked: cyber hygiene. We will explore what cyber hygiene really means, why it is critical today, more than ever today, in the cloud native world we all live in. So before we jump in, let me give you a quick overview of where we're headed today. First, we will talk about why cyber hygiene matters. Then we will get into the practical side of things. What does good digital hygiene actually look like? We'll walk through the core habits and controls that can make the biggest difference for you. And I'll show you why they are more powerful than you might think. After that, we will dive deeper into why the basics matter so much, and why these simple actions can keep your organization out of the headlines. And finally, we will look on how to go on beyond a checklist and policies, and look how we can start to build habits and a culture where security isn't an afterthought, but a second nature. So let's begin with a story. It's not about tech, it's about medicine. But I feel it sets the stage perfectly for what we're going to talk about. So in the 1840s, a Hungarian doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis was working in a Vienna hospital. He noticed something disturbing in the maternity wards where doctors were delivering babies. The mortality rate from childbed fever, a deadly postpartum infection, was shockingly high, between 10 and 18%. But in the wards where midwives were delivering babies, the infection rate was closer to 3%. Why such a stark difference, you wondered? Semmelweis had a theory. Back then, it wasn't uncommon for doctors to go straight from performing autopsies, literally dissecting cadavers, into delivering babies without washing their hands. And so he wondered, could the doctors be carrying something deadly on their hands? So Semmelweis ran an experiment. He ordered doctors to start washing their hands with a chlorinated lime solution before touching any patients. The result? The mortality rates plummeted from about 18% down to 2%. And later, when they started cleaning the instruments as well and adding more hygiene to the rooms, it dropped to about 1%. A simple act, washing your hands, had a profound life-saving impact. But there's a twist to the story. Despite the clear results, Semmelweis faced massive resistance. The medical community didn't want to believe something so basic could be the key. It took decades before hand washing became standard practice in hospitals. And personally, I can tell you how many times I've had the same discussions over and over with cloud architects and product owners after I have done a cloud health check with them, and I suggest something as straightforward as setting up a proper patch management process. I had the same excuses over and over. We don't have time, it'll break something, it's not our top priority. But the reality is, just like in Semmelweis' time, the basics saved lives for him, but for us, it can literally save our businesses. And a simple truth is, history's biggest breakthrough didn't always come from advanced technologies. They came from mastering the basics. In the 1800s, as today, hospitals were supposed to be a place of healing, but there were also places where infections ran rampantly throughout. Then came Semmelweis. His idea wasn't high tech, it was basic. If we fast forward to today, we are building systems on the most advanced platform ever created, AWS. This gives us immense flexibility and speed, but it's also complex. And this complexity brings risk. And just like in the 19th century hospitals, most of today's breaches are not caused by elite hackers or nation states attack or an advanced persistent threat or the newest, shiniest zero-day vulnerability. They are caused by hygiene problems. So our digital environments, cloud accounts, on-premise data centers, third-party SaaS platforms are the modern hotspot equivalent of hospitals back then. They are packed with opportunity and scalability for our business, but also full of risk. And I want to give you an example, the Equifax breach from 2017. This is one of the largest data breaches in history. 143 million people had their personal data exposed. Names, social security numbers, credit information, all leaked. And the root cause? An unpatched software vulnerability, not a zero-day, not a state-sponsored actors using some advanced malware we've never seen, just a known flaw with a fix available they knew about and didn't act on. Let me repeat that. A known flaw with a fix available they knew about and didn't act on. For me, that's the digital equivalent of a doctor performing an autopsy and then going straight into another patient and doing surgery without washing their hands. So what was the result of this breach? Massive financial loss. Regulatory fines, lawsuits, and maybe the worst of all, a loss of trust for Equifax, for the consumers. While this breach was entirely preventable, in total, the incident cost them $1.38 billion US. 1.38 billion. And what Semmelweis taught us still holds true. The basics done consistently that prevent disaster. And for cybersecurity, that basic discipline is cyber hygiene. It's not about the latest AI-powered engine or the shiniest new zero trust buzzword. It's about the fundamentals done consistently over time. So, what do we mean when we say cyber hygiene? Is it washing our PC or our servers or cleaning our fans? No, it's the daily routine practices to keep your environment clean and secure, just like keeping good personal hygiene can protect your health. Patching, access control, segmentation, backup, MFA. These are simple practices, but effective. And when you patch a known vulnerability, it protects your surface before it gets exploited. And back in 2014, HP did a report where they found that 44% of known breaches was caused by an unpatched vulnerability. Over the years, that number have dropped, and in 2020, it was about 3%. It is climbing back up again, so in 2023, it was about 14%, and last year, it was about 20%. So 1 in 5 breaches now stems from known vulnerabilities that could have been patched. If we put that into some perspective, imagine that 1 in 5 surgeries failed due to poor hygiene conditions. That would be a crisis. But in cybersecurity or in IT, we still tolerate this and we accept this risk, or someone above us have accepted the risk for us. Then we need to add multiple layers to our defense, i.e. MFA. MFA brings down account takeover by 99%. And at Trend Micro, we have a red team that you can hire that will hack your infrastructure or your organization. To this day, they still find accounts without MFA and with a simple password like company name 123 or summer 2025 that they just log into and gain access. No hacking, just logging in with these simple passwords, which MFA would have stopped. Training people to recognize phishing mails and social engineering cuts down phishing success rate by 50%. ChatGPT and other large language models have made it so the phishing emails, they have perfect grammar, they have perfect sentences. So it is really important that we educate our users and train them regularly to help and spot this. Backups, regular backups and backups we trust turns ransomware into a recovery exercise, not a crisis. And here, basic hygiene is like the 3-2-1 principles, where we have 3 copies of the data we want to back up on 2 different types of storage media, and 1 copy is always sent off-site. Basic hygiene we should adhere to. And also, lastly, we need to make sure that we have secure configurations. We still see vSphere publicly accessible from the internet. We see remote desktop ports open publicly to the internet. None of these I'm mentioning here are cutting edge, but they work. These basics save money, reputation, simple practices that will have a huge impact on your security posture. So even though the fundamentals of cyber hygiene are well known, yet many organizations still struggle to maintaining them. Why is that? Our IT environments today, they span on-prem, multi-cloud, third-party SaaS, legacy system, and maybe some modern microservices. Keeping this complex attack surface properly configured, patched, and aligned is an enormous coordination challenge. Organizations also, they often hesitate to invest in infrastructure for safe patching, like redundancy or a rolling update process, because the cost doesn't seem tied to immediate functionality. But resilience is functionality. And it's a competitive advantage to be able to patch without downtime, not a luxury. I had a conversation a few months back with a cloud architect, and he said that patching causes downtime and it can break the app, and they were not interested in doing it. And that was unacceptable for him. A few months go by, and unfortunately they were hit by a ransomware. And I thought to myself, they thought downtime due to patching was the risk. Not patching was the risk. They were down for weeks after they got ransomware. And another part here is, since the cloud adoption era, misconfigurations has become a big part of breaches. We can literally expose a virtual hard drive to the public internet. We need tools and processes to account for the human errors or the human factor in configuring our cloud environment. And also, security fatigue is real. People, they will delay updates, they will reuse passwords, they will skip MFA because they feel it slows them down. And just like Semmelweis faced resistance in the 1800s, cyber hygiene faces inertia today. We are afraid that the hygiene protocols will disrupt our business. So, yeah, cyber hygiene is basic, but in today's world, basic doesn't mean easy. So, let me ask you something. I know we're in Sweden and people don't like to be interactive, but by a show of hands, how many of you have at least one system in production right now you know can't be patched easily? Most of us, right? The ones that are not holding up their hands are not aware of it, or maybe not telling the truth. That's a different conversation. But this is the reality we're living in. It's not that we don't care about the hygiene. It's that it's hard to prioritize in our environments that are full of complexity, pressure from outside parties, and where we need to do constant trade-offs. But just like healthcare figured out how to embed hand washing even into a chaotic emergency room, we can figure this out too. Think about how hospitals now run. There are procedural checklists, hand sanitizers in every hallway. Hygiene, it is not optional, it's systemic. Cybersecurity should work in the same way. Reinforcing good practices through a culture and not a policy, we have to stop relying on individual efforts of patching and maintaining and start embedding hygiene into processes and build a structure for it. So let me show you why hygiene isn't just smart from a security perspective, but it's actually smart business. So IBM have a global breach report where they peg the average cost of a breach at 4.45 million US dollars. And that's just the average. Here I'm going to show you some real world examples. In 2016, Uber had some stolen AWS credentials from a GitHub repository. It cost them $148 million. Equifax, I mentioned earlier, a known vulnerability they failed to patch, $1.38 billion. Maersk, the world's largest container shipping company, they got ransomware. It cost them $300 million. Merck and Company, one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, they had 30,000 computers and servers taken down across worldwide offices, research lab, manufacturing plants in a matter of hours, and it cost them $870 million. City of Baltimore, they had a known vulnerability also, and they got ransomware. It cost them $18 million. 23andMe, a genetic testing company, they were hit by a credential stuffing attack, meaning one of their employees had reused their password on a different site that had their entire password database leaked. So the hacker just took that password and logged into the 23andMe system and leaked about 14,000 customer accounts. This cost them $30 million. And lastly but not least, we have Marks and Spencer, a British retailer where hackers gain entry through phishing and social engineering. This cost them $400 million plus over £1 billion in market capitalization. These are not theoretical numbers. These are receipts. And these are just some examples, and breaches happen in all industries to organizations of all sizes. And think of it like this. It's cheaper to buy soap and keep your personal hygiene at a good level than pay for a hospital visit due to an infection you could have prevented by good hygiene. Cyber hygiene costs money, yes, but not patching, not segmenting, not enforcing MFA. That's how you end up in breach territory. And that's where the cost truly explodes. The company's job is to generate value and revenue. Our job is to protect that engine that makes it possible. We need to frame the cyber hygiene risk correctly when we talk to leadership. Investing in cyber hygiene, redundancy, infrastructure resilience, these aren't security or IT expenses. They are risk mitigating investments that protects uptime, brand equity, and long-term competitiveness. That's a message the boardroom understands. In Sweden, we have estimated the average societal cost of a single fatal traffic incident to 40.5 million kronor. That's about 4 million euros. So this includes emergency response, loss of productivity, and medical treatment and lifelong consequences. So what did we do as a society? We invested. Safer roads, we enforced winter tires, we have rigorous driving tests, because this was expensive, but not doing this investment would have been more expensive. But there's a flip side to this. If the cost of rebuilding a road is 100 million kroners and it will save one life, Sweden will not make that investment. We should apply the same principle to our systems in terms of resilience investment. And what is the main driver, the main cost driver of these breaches? It is the downtime of the systems. So the question then is, how much does it cost for our system to be down? And luckily for you, I did a presentation here last year where I broke down how much downtime actually costs for a system or an organization. So I'm going to give you an example I used last year. So this is a simplified AWS architecture for online services incorporated, my fictive company. And here we have on the left side, I believe it's for you, yeah, we have an resilient RDS setup with dual availability zones. I would say this is the standard way we build an architect in AWS using an RDS backend, right? On the right, I have removed the resilience on the RDS layer. So on the left, we have a cost about $1,500 a month, and on the right, we have about $977 a month. And for this infrastructure, for the RDS layer, we pay $539 in resilience cost a month. And that equates to $6,000 roughly a year. But here's the thing. 12 months prior to last year's summit, the EU North 1A availability zone had 0 hours of downtime on the RDS service. 0. But we still invest in this redundancy. Why? Because we know that when infrastructure fails, it leads to downtime, and downtime is expensive. We're buying peace of mind, business continuity, and when an organization gets hacked, breached, or ransomware, the outcome is the same as infrastructure failure. We get downtime and a loss of service. And this extra investment gives us infrastructure that is not just more reliable, but it also allows us to do things like zero downtime patching, because we have 2 instances of the RDS backend, which means the investment isn't just about failover, but it also is an enabler of cyber hygiene. So it removes the friction of we can't patch, it'll cost downtime. Suddenly, this $6,000 investment per year isn't just about infrastructure failure, but an enabler of security. And with more security comes less downtime. So last year I did a equation which I called cost of downtime, and I just wanted to run through an example here to show you how it can look for your organization. And I haven't come across any organization that have done these calculations and then applied it to their risk investment strategy, like the Swedish traffic agency have. So this company is making $100,000 a year, Online Services Inc. That average out to about $11.4 an hour. When a service is down, we have an extra effort cost. An engineer or someone needs to bring the system up again, and we'll peg that cost to $100 per hour. We also incur a brand loss cost, i.e. your service is down, they will buy their goods and services from someone else, or they will cancel the service because you're not reliable, and we'll peg that to $100 a month. And in this example, we will have a downtime duration of 5 hours. So the formula will look like this, and the cost of downtime for this example is $1,057. And this is for a relatively small company. We scale this to enterprise numbers, and the impact is massive, as we've seen on the examples before. So I like graphs, so I did a graph for this, and what hit me when I did it is we can calculate a break-even point for this resilience investment, and in this case the investment was about $6,000 a year, and that needs to save us from 30.6 hours of downtime a year to hit sort of a break-even point. The kicker is the average recovery time for ransomware is 3 weeks. So then this example goes out the window. when I prepared my presentation for last year, I interviewed people who worked at Cisco, I interviewed people who build data centers, and I asked them, how does your calculation look when you decide to build in redundancy or resilience into core switches, firewalls, and data centers, etc.? And they told me they don't do it. It's just the way we deploy, it's the way we build, it's built in. And I came to the realization that nobody is doing these calculations. When I worked as a cloud architect, I didn't do this calculation for the RDS layer. I deployed resilience in that layer every time. And that is the well-architected framework we all live and die by, right? Resilience in all the layers. We need the same normalization for spending on cyber hygiene that will prevent outages caused by an attacker. It's not an either or, it's a unified risk mitigation strategy. It's all about risk, and we need to frame that risk correctly for the boardroom. They don't care why the system is down, they care that the system is down and not making them any money. So when Semmelweis started promoting hygiene, doctors had to remember to wash their hands. There were no routines, no dispensers, no enforcements. It took decades and a major cultural shift before hospitals turned hand washing into a systematic part of the medical care. Think of it today. There are hand washing stations everywhere, visual reminders posted on the wall, checklists and workflows for cleaning procedures. This is a screenshot from a YouTube video the CDC posted 2 years ago. They're still doing training to reinforce their habits for medical workers to have proper hygiene 125 years after it became the norm. And here, they're also reaffirming a process for when the process fails, reinforcing the habit that people regularly check that there are hand cleaning supplies, again, a process for when the process is failing. I love that. We need to implement this into cyber hygiene. And hygiene can't be an afterthought. It has to be baked in as a part of your everyday workflow. So I did a comparison with some cyber hygiene basics and what we have become standards in hospitals. So hand washing removes germs to prevent them from spreading. Patching removes known vulnerabilities before they might become a problem. And as with hygiene, security should be applied in layers. Sterile gloves create a second layer of protection, just like MFA adds a second layer to our account security. Training creates and reinforces good habits. This makes sure the staff knows and follows all the protocols you have set up for your organization. Redundancy systems for when normal operation fails. Hospitals, they keep spare supplies, they have diesel generators. We should have proper backups for our systems so that, I love my quote from earlier, a ransomware turns into a recovery exercise, not a crisis. So hospitals, they isolate patients when they carry an infectious disease. This limits the exposure of that patient to the rest of the hospital. The same can be done in cyber through hygiene by applying a least privileged approach and having a segmented network. Please, don't have flat networks, please. Segmentation works really well in limiting the blast radius an outbreak might have within your organization, and should be basic hygienes that are applied. Telemetry. So the first thing the doctor gives you when you come into the ER is a heart monitor. This gives them real-time telemetry on the state of the patient, and it's a good indicator of the overall health of the patient. In cybersecurity or in cyber hygiene, we must also monitor all our devices in real time, and especially our network traffic, which I would consider is the heart equivalent for cyber or IT. And I'm not talking about CMs here. I have very strong opinions about CMs being used as a detection platform, but real-time telemetry that we can correlate across all the layers within your IT infrastructure. These are powerful tactics that when done together, they form a really strong security posture. It's not flashy, it's not expensive, but incredibly powerful. And in medicine, we don't rely on doctors alone washing their hands, but everybody who works at the hospital, and it's baked into their identity of being a hospital worker. They don't want to harm their patients, right? In cybersecurity or in cyber hygiene, we're not there yet, but we should be, because security is everyone's job now. It's not just a SOC analyst, it's DevOps, it's HR, it's finance, it's interns, and it's executives. If anyone has access to sensitive data or systems, they are part of the attack surface. And if they're part of the attack surface, they need to be part of the defense. And what we want is a security culture where developers speak to the security team before pushing new code, finance teams report suspicious invoices, and executives, they model good behaviors and don't bypass them. And everyone in the organization, they understand the why and not just the what. And we know that culture, we can change this fast. We've all seen it. Think about it during COVID. In just a few months, clean hands became everybody's responsibility. Hand sanitizers dispensers were everywhere. People adjusted routines. We normalized a whole new behavior because it mattered. The same is possible with cyber hygiene. We need to make it easy to do the right thing. And my next obvious question here is, what does actual good hygiene look like? Not in a textbook, not in a framework, I mean day-to-day operational reality. So here's a quick pulse check, a simple list. And the question I often ask is, do you even know what your critical assets are? I see your brains are already checking boxes here or not checking them. And most organizations are doing some of this. Few are doing all of it consistently. So this can be your benchmark, a quiet, honest gut check. Are we actually hygienic or are we just hopeful? And remember, this isn't about shame. It's about clarity. And we need to remove the stigma of being breached, phished, or hacked. Everybody needs to feel safe to come forward and say, hey, I messed up, or I see something weird here, so we all can come together and fix it. No blame reporting is a very important part. And from day one, every employee should understand what good hygiene looks like within your organization, why it matters, how their role connects to it, and that's how you go from a checklist to a shared responsibility, just as we have with AWS, a shared responsibility model. The security team needs to have a shared responsibility model with the whole company. And before we wrap things up, I want to zoom out a bit. So we've been talking about some simple practices that are really powerful and why they matter so much. And in the 1840s, hand washing was radical. It wasn't standard. It wasn't taken seriously. So 1847, Semmelweis introduces hand washing. In the 1860s, Pasteur's germ theory provides the scientific basis for his experiment and proves that he was correct. But it wasn't until the 1900s that this became the norm, a foundational piece of healthcare. And this took decades of cultural change within the hospitals and medical field. And now, no one questions it. It's just the way hospitals operate. So imagine reading headlines like this in 2025. Budget cuts remove soap from hospital. Nya Karolinska didn't install sinks in hospitals due to budget cuts. Nya Karolinska, I believe, is the latest, biggest hospital or big hospital built in Sweden. Surgical deaths blamed on poor hygiene. This is unthinkable. We would demand accountability. We'd ask, why didn't they wash their hands? Why wasn't that system in place? We have built these processes into the medical field so that it wouldn't be acceptable that a hospital runs out of soap because of budget constraints. Fast forward to today. I believe we're in the same phase with cyber hygiene. We know it works. We know it saves systems, data, and even businesses. So what has changed in our world that can enable this? 2005, Microsoft released the Windows Server Update Service, a system to manage patches centrally for basically full patch automation. In 2016, Kubernetes introduced rolling updates. That means zero downtime patching or updates for all your serverless workloads. These are our modern soaps and sinks. We have these tools. We know how much a breach costs. Why do we still see headlines like this? These headlines should outrage us almost as much as the one with the hospitals we looked at earlier. Equifax failed to take basic steps. Poor security let hackers access 40 million voter details in the UK. 3,000 UK Exchange servers remain unpatched. And this was months after a critical patch for Microsoft Exchange was released. And most breaches that start with a vulnerability as the point of entry, the vulnerability often used is more than 12 months old. More than 12 months old, and yet people haven't patched. This is my favorite one. The Swedish church was warned for a vulnerability in their IT system. They didn't act and they got ransomware. They were warned by MSB, the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency, if you directly translate it, that they had a vulnerable system exposed to the internet that had a patch available. And they ignored it and they got ransomware. Why is it acceptable to build a system that can't be patched? This is our moment to say enough. Yes, patching is hard. Yes, updating is disruptive, but so was hand washing before we built processes, culture, and infrastructure around it. Cyber hygiene is the same. We can make it routine. We can make it accepted. We must make it non-negotiable. And the keen-eyed of you might have noticed that all the breaches I've talked about today was all after 2016. So the Windows Update Service and rolling updates were available and existed. So why was this acceptable? And what have your organization normalized? Do you treat hygiene as optional or essential? So I have some takeaways I want you to take with you from today. What we've been talking about today is not fancy tooling. We've been talking about simple practices that, when embraced by a whole culture, can save businesses. Treat cyber hygiene like hand washing, not a one-time checklist, not something triggered by a breach. You need the essentials done right and done everywhere consistently. So patch, use MFA, train your people, back up your data, restrict unnecessary access, and monitor for what you miss. The tool you need is contextualized visibility into your estate. The basics work, and mastering them will make you 90% more secure than most. And remember, security isn't a silo, it is a culture. And culture starts with education, expectation, and encouragement. build a workplace where people know and how to act and care. So you might sit here now wondering, where do I start? Or how strong are my current hygiene practices? Well, me and the team here at the Trend Micro booth, we would love to show you what your cloud looks like through the hygiene lens. We are offering today Summit attendees a sponsored cloud health check, where we provide you with a check using our cyber risk exposure tool, where we can help you assess your cloud environment, uncover hidden misconfigurations, risky permission, and hygiene gaps, providing you with a clear roadmap on what to prioritize, address risk, and helping you focus effort where it really counts. And you might be surprised what is lurking under the surface and how small fixes can have a massive difference in your security posture. So swing by our booth, bring your questions, and let's have a conversation about how we might help you make your cyber hygiene second nature for your cloud environment. And also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email if you have any questions about today's topic or want to have a conversation regarding cybersecurity. So, thank you.